with that, maybe I would like to now invite Monu to share her thoughts on emerging opportunity landscape in private credit, particularly also shift towards new age sectors, and also importantly whether private credit can increasingly act as patient capital for mid markets, mid corporates, and SMEs, and underserved businesses. So maybe over to you, Monu, for your thoughts on that.
So thanks, Raja, and thanks IVCA for hosting the webinar. I so required for creating private credit awareness. So I just want to give a little bit of context on what's happening in the world before we jump to the emerging opportunities, because the world today, as we see, is not what it was a year back. We have a war with West Asia. The Ukraine war had been going on for so long, and now we have this war with West Asia, which has captured the Strait of Hormuz. India imports 85% of its crude oil. The crude has jumped beyond 100 per barrel. Inflation is going up in India. It was 2.6% in FY26, but FY27 is projected to be 4.7%, a direct reflection of the cost of energy, which is seeping into everything that we buy, that we produce. Logistics costs are going up because of the blockages. Transportation is taking 10 to 15 days more, leading to higher working capital requirements, higher transportation costs. The other thing that's happening is, India's demand, India's GDP has been totally, the GDP growth has been reduced to the projections from a 7.5% last year, 7.6 to be exact, to about 6.7%, because it's a ripple down effect of the other big factors that over the last year India has faced, and a lot of countries, is the tariff uncertainty from the US. The flip flop has created so much uncertainty for businesses. With the peak of 50%, so many SME businesses, other businesses try to diversify into alternate markets, products, and create alternate venues. And then there's a reduction, and now there's again an increase being discussed. So there's this total lack of uncertainty with India's biggest export partner. So India is not immune to all this, even if we know we have a large domestic engine for consumption. But it's not doomsday. I think the third biggest lever that's happened in the world over the last 1 year is the unprecedented surge in AI. There has been a huge, gigantic shift in valuations and allocations of capital to AI and AI infrastructure companies. I mean, I just want to share some statistics. The top 15 tech AI companies of the world have valuations of about $35 trillion today, which, if you really ask me, and it's grown by 50%. And a single company, NVIDIA, is a $5 trillion, which is larger than India's GDP. So, and we have more like that. So that's the extent of the shifts that have come about. And it's not just US. Now we have the Korea, SK Hynix, and Samsung that's come up, TSMC from Taiwan. So globally, this is now emerging as one big shift. But having said that, now with this context, it's not all doomsday for India, but it's very important for us to look forward, look ahead. The AI infrastructure demand has created a lot of emerging demand in India on data centers, on semiconductors, chips, and all allied industries like power, cooling systems, your cables, all of that. So if we want to break it down, data centers cumulatively had an investment of about 20 billion in India over the last 5 years. And in the last year itself, $65 billion have been committed by the big Amazon, the Amazons and the Googles, right? So there is this huge demand for setting up data centers in India because of the availability of land in India, because it's cheap right now. We're pretty much 50% of the cost of what it costs to set up a data center in Asia. And of course, the other big factor for that in India is India's own domestic demand. Our internet users today are at about 970 million people. Our data usage has tripled over the last 7 years. So all of this comes the need for data centers. And I'm sorry, I'm giving a long context and a long answer. But what it does for SMEs, and which is where I think is the real emerging opportunity for private credit, because the big names will get captured by the big bosses and the banks, and you'll have foreign institutional capital which will come. But at the tier 2 and the tier 3 level, a data center will require precision engineering, they'll require mechanical, electrical, plumbing, they will require specialized cables. And this is where our SME players will be. The other big player will be your semiconductors. Now, of the 5 trillion that I spoke about, the top 15, 8 are semiconductor companies. Now, when these semiconductor companies, and India has a big focus on electronics manufacturing, it's one of the PLIs. We've seen a big Apple that has come in. And so with that, what we are seeing now is that the semiconductor investments are expected to grow 30-40% over the next few years. And that trickles down to SMEs for, there's something called assembly and testing of semiconductors, for example, that requires specialized smaller companies who they can't manufacture the wafers, but who is going to fund these smaller companies, right? The chemicals that they need for packaging, the small consumables for testing. Then the other big trend that we are seeing is the need for power to fuel this entire AI and computing requirement, right? Now, every gigawatt of a data center requires at least 3 to 4x of power to fuel it. And of course, cooling systems and water. And where does that come from? I think the easy answer for India is renewable energy. The energy transition is so critical for India because right now it's the hardest thing you see on your face, because the crude is at 85%. It's hitting India, and it's a national imperative to switch to renewable. And we've already done about 40% of our capacity is solar right now, although actually utilizations are lower because of battery restrictions. And so the on the solar, the OEMs, the manufacturers, the backend, the tier 2, tier 3 is where private credit opportunities are arising. And in fact, this we've been seeing for a while now. EVs itself, for example, also part of the energy transition, has grown by about 25% last year. It's had a bit of setback because of the charging infrastructure in the initial years. But now we are seeing that India, especially in the two-wheeler, is forging ahead, and who does their components, all of that. So this is where and this opportunity on a very back of the envelope is sized at about 40 to 60,000 crores for private credit, because banks are not coming to fund these. These are smaller companies. They are scaling up very fast. They don't have historical track records. The pace at which they need working capital is much faster than what they've done in the past. So banks will be there maybe for a basic level, but to fulfill the new needs, private credit steps in. Plus, a lot of this, if you see, is in the supply chain, which essentially means that the companies will be sitting on orders. And that's what private credit can fund more comfortably, because your visibility of cash flows, even if there is the assets are a constraint. So yeah, data centers, semiconductors, energy transition, and the trickle down effect into specialty chemicals, specialty manufacturing, MEPs, cooling systems, HVACs, power cables, in a nutshell, with strong opportunity over there, 40 to 60,000 crores over the next 3 to 5 years.
Thank you so much, Mono, for a very, very granular response, duly correlated to the global realities. So clearly, this is a big propeller in terms of the opportunity going forward. So there's more to fund clearly with agile solutions. With that.